It says that no man is truly free who is unable to control himself. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise Daily. This is a stock-taking week.
Indeed it is. Good morning and welcome. I am Bukola Koka.
You know, I was coming up with my own saying this morning, but it wasn't working, so I'll just stick with my own good morning. You intimidate me, all of you. So good morning. Welcome to Sunrise Daily. I'm Kayode Kikelu in Lagos. We're counting down to the year, and as Nyota said, it is a stock-taking week. The question is, how much of a stock are we taking as a people? I know we usually say as a people and government, but today we're categorizing everyone together because at the end of the day, we're all people, whether you're government or otherwise. We're all people. We're all Nigerians. Perhaps that's one of the things we'll learn to do in the new year, to see all of us as the same, as one. Yes, we have different responsibilities, but at the end of the day, we're expected to be one. And a point in case is what's happening with the rail. And we'll try to balance things this morning, and the essence of this conversation is to ensure that we leave some of these things behind in 2023 as we head into a new year, 2024. On the side of the people, don't forget, we're still the same thing anyway, but on the side of the people, it's been said that people keep vandalizing the rail in the country. It's something we grappled with for years, and we've seen how vital the rail infrastructure can be to development, to not just movement, really. It spirals into business, and especially during the Yuletide, a lot of people turning to the rails to, spend time with loved ones and the rest. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand is what we see people who are employed by government doing, and that is sharp practices, extorting people. Government had said, well, it's expected to be free for certain routes, that is. But even for those routes, we see that workers of the officials that are at the rail station keep extorting people. And I just wonder, for how long would we keep doing this? It has to end as a matter of urgency. It is wrong. I don't know if we don't tell ourselves the truth or if we just say, you know what, I'll just do it and move on. But it is wrong. It is wrong in every sense of it. So this has to stop right now. I know the NRC head had said that, well, people are meant to buy their tickets online and all of that. But we've seen these things time and again. Is it for passports where you go online, you do all of that, and then you go to the office and they tell you, well, you've done online, now you need to do offline for us. And you wonder, so what is the point? This has to end right now. It is a new year in a few days. So please let it be part of your New Year resolutions. Bukola.
Yes, indeed, Kade. We would say that if government didn't provide this infrastructure, government was not responsible. Government was not responsive to the yearnings of the people. We need transportation, mass transportation of people, and not just people, goods, from one point to the other. But government has spent billions of dollars providing this infrastructure. Of course, we know about the loans, from the Chinese government that have, helped government to put this infrastructure in place. So it is our collective commonwealth, and we must protect it. Investigations have, gone on to reveal about how the vandalism of rail infrastructure is a sophisticated crime syndicate, and that there's a market for it. If there was no market for it, then there wouldn't be this strange thriving of the vandalism of infrastructure of the rails, and not just the rail, even bridges. And that's why some of the piers of the bridges in recent times have been replaced by concrete rather than iron, because people continue to vandalize it. So the people must reflect as well about the reasons they do this. Why can't we, project our own patriotism and then leave our leaders to also project theirs? So these are, issues that Nigerians should reflect on as we wrap up this stock-taking week. And speaking of which, reflecting on what leaders also can do as well. The DG of the NRC had cause to appear before the House of Representatives during the budget defense, and questions were asked about why the NRC was recording low sales, and his response was, okay, ticket racketeering, by staff of the NRC was also responsible, and that's a systemic issue. It's no excuse, definitely, for the staff of the NRC, but then again, what about welfare, remuneration? What figures are there, that would be responsible for any form of dissatisfaction that would encourage the staff, to look elsewhere on how to make ends meet. These issues, the House of Reps committee and indeed the Senate committee must reflect on, such that in the coming year there must be a better package for staff of the NRC. So, some of the issues that we should reflect on as we close the week. Nyota.
Thank you, Kayode and Bukola. There's a saying in my village that many times it's the one who lives inside the house that points out where the goods are hidden inside that house. So while we're also telling our leaders to show their patriotism by leading well and governing the people well, and the people also that they should also push forth their patriotism so that the leaders can also see that they are patriotic. Also tell those that are working in the NRC to say, please, stop pointing out where the goods are hidden so that they will not be stolen. But above all, critical infrastructure like the rail is something that we all need to protect. Because in this season, in this festive season, I can count at least 10 people who have used the rail from the northern part of the country to the southern part of the country just to go be with their families. And they'll tell you how much cheaper it's been for them. In the course of enjoying this infrastructure, we should leave it also so that our children, we hear our parents and our elders tell us how they used to travel all the way across the country to go to school. I mean, you could put your child on a rail, on a train, and the child will go from your village in southern Nigeria to the north, to a federal government college, just to attend school. And the same way they will come back. And that's how they bonded, they made friends and all of that. Those things, we looked forward to them. Fortunately for us, the rails are back. Can we just protect our own infrastructure so that we can also leave it for our children? As Kayode said, let's decide, all of us, to leave it behind with 2023 as we all take stock and look at what's going on. But let's hear what the leadership of the NRC has to say about this matter of vandalism of critical infrastructure.
The good thing is that this government has come up with a free train ride that we started on the 21st, and it's still ongoing. It's a 15-day operation, and we're advising our people to ensure you get the ticket online. All our stations, ticket offices have been closed so that we don't have a rush there. Since we are online at our various train services, we're trying to encourage our people to go online. Even when we come back to commercial operation, they should be able to get their ticket online so that they don't come to the station and say somebody is cheating them. The only issue we have now is vandalization of the track, which it is a big problem. It's a big problem that when we replace them, they come back and attack them. A case in point is Mushi here on the modernized track. Just before the Christmas, there was vandalization and 200 clips were replaced. 3 days after, the same spot, they have vandalized them. So we are looking for a way to protect that place. I think we should look inward and check the so-called iron companies that are manufacturing iron, that go after the iron, and encouraging and patronizing people who go about stealing scrap to make up the iron rod. That is not the way to grow. You don't go after what we have to grow your business.
The MD of the Nigeria Railway Corporation, they're talking about things to do to protect our infrastructure, also why it's a lot better to go online and buy your tickets. As I said a little earlier, I don't know if you caught that, I said that when we reduce human contact in all our processes, it makes it a whole lot easier to cut down the corruption level. So go online, buy your tickets, it's faster, and you could board the train faster as well and get to where you need to get to. Also, as we said earlier, let's protect our own infrastructure. Don't worry, I'm not alone. I'll probably be joining us shortly, but just go on and look at what the papers have to say. You know that when she comes, she'll have a lot to say about this, but let's look at what the dailies are saying today. Now, starting out with the Vanguard newspaper, and this is what they lead with. Horror without end. Plateau Village gets fresh attack notice. That's what the Vanguard newspaper is leading with. Plateau Village gets fresh attack notice. That story is on page 5. Impending attack fixed for today. That's MBF. Arts communities got some letters in previous attacks. We're working to scale up intelligence gathering, FG. UN Northern Reps Caucus demand thorough investigation. Probe killings, Reps minority leader tells NAS. Tinubu must end Plateau killings, PFN president. Prophet El Buba, Boko's group call for speedy action. Olayipo Hashim seeks rapid security reforms. This incessant attacks have to end across our country. Indeed. Or you see there, APC North National Working Committee visits President Tinubu. You see that picture there? Smiles on their faces. There are very few who are not smiling. Very few who are not smiling. But then, Ondo fear grips political appointees as Ayeda Tiwa takes charge. We know that some were already resigning on their own. Some say they did it out of it's a personal decision to do so. But check page 7 for details. We'll maintain 3,500 Naira cement price from January. It's a company, those that want to build and all of that. Above the nameplate, figure out of out-of-school children worrisome. That's credited to the president. And I think he told some governors, he told the governors the other day that, look, we're working on this together. So please don't think I'm all alone. Just before we leave the Vanguard, Super Eagles need AFCON title to regain lost glory. Who's talking? Used to be a midfielder with the Super Eagles. Mikel says, we are always favorites. Well, can the favorites turn to champions? You'll see more of that on the back page of the Vanguard. Oh, yeah, that picture of Ashishat Oshola with the president and the first lady in Lagos when she was hosted. She came to present her best footballer female trophy to the president. And that's it from the Vanguard newspaper.
Oh, you didn't think I was going to leave you alone this last day of last working day in the year 2023,
I didn't think so.
Sometimes tough, but hey, we make it happen anyway. So good morning, and I'll be looking at Daily Trust for you this morning. Bandits give 7-day ultimatum on abducted Zamfara varsity students. That's the lead story right there. Threatened to kill 3 girls if colleagues not released. Negotiate to save our daughters, parents tell federal government. So it does appear that lives of students, varsity students, are at stake here. And it's a cry for help. Never mind that it's supposed to be a season of merriment. Some people are certainly not in that mood. Page 4 is where you'll find details. You're also wondering, just in case you're wondering what this is about, the picture right there is bringing you news from DR Congo, where elections are supposed to be happening. But look at this. Ondo, more Akeredolu's appointees resign hours after Ayeda Tiwa takes over. That story is on page 11 for you. Borno government seeks justice for driver killed by soldier over bribe. Page 7 is where you'll find details. And will maintain 3,500 naira cement price in January 2024. That's according to BUA. So you find that on page 5. Will that spur the competitor to do something as well? You know, maybe this inflation bubble can be burst from the housing sector. You never can tell because the way prices of things have been going up. They say in Nigeria it only goes up, it never comes down.
It will come down. The president says it will come down.
Okay, so who knows? Maybe this is where that is going to happen. Will it be an artificial crashing? Will it be something that will be sustainable? Well, January 2024 is when you'll know. And look at this. 2023, despite diversification move, non-oil exports still lag behind. It's on page 19. Plateau killings, survivors narrate ordeal as 148 confirmed dead in Bokos. This is Bokos alone, because as yesterday, when we received an update, I think from local council chairman, we're looking at 198. Figures had gone up to almost 200 people killed in one fell swoop in 2 nights or overnight. This is truly troubling. I know yesterday the Sultan of Sokoto was also very vocal, asking very critical questions of the intelligence agency. Are they saying that nobody heard about these attacks, that there was no intelligence whatsoever about what was going to happen? An attack on that scale, it really does leaves a lot of questions. And we hope that, the security agencies will not see them as rhetorical questions. These are questions needing answers. We'll leave them there for Daily Trust newspapers.
Good morning, Malpa. It's good to see you. Perhaps that's why an association is making a very sad submission on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune this morning. It also trails the Plateau killings. Listen to this. Plateau killings. Human lives seem to mean nothing anymore in Nigeria. That's ascribed to the JNI. That would be the Jama Nasir Islam, an Islamic organization. The number of people killed so far in Nigeria, the predominant numbers are from the north, so you'd understand why the statement is being made. It's a page 12 read, but let's take a look at the riders. Shatima holds town hall meeting with Plateau leaders, stakeholders. Reps Minority Caucus wants end to seamless killings. We do hope that there's a definite end very soon. Quite a number of other stories that are just as revealing from the front page of Tribune this morning. Right under the big story, agriculture. Farmers generate 1.28 billion naira outcome of Kano State Agro-Pastoral Development Project, SAA intervention. That's a page 28 read. And if this, is coming from Kano State alone, it speaks to potential. And, imagine all the other states combined, but agriculture has been challenged by the problem of insecurity that we keep talking about, high cost of transportation as well. Let's take a look at one more story before we exit Tribune. Right at the bottom strip, 20.3 million out-of-school children, 36 states. FCT failed to access 68.7 billion naira grant in 18 years. That's ascribed to UBEC. And there's more. Only Osun, Niger, Taraba, Sokoto, Enugu, Ondo lodged 10.6 billion naira counterpart fund in 2023. Falana seeks direct distribution, threatens litigation. That's a page 3 read. So when you lament the lack of vision, to significantly change the numbers of the out-of-school children, you know why the numbers keep increasing, because states are not making their commitment to the counterpart funding for UBEC, such that there can be more activity and more resolve to reduce the numbers. Of course, we can't miss to mention that the new governor in Ondo State visited the family of the late Governor Rotimi Akeredolu, and you see the picture right there. Let's leave it there for the Nigerian Tribune.
Well, Business Day is next, and this is a look at, something a lot of us will be definitely familiar with, and that's ride-hailing, the apps, various apps on mobile devices. But this is the angle. Ride-hailing loses appeal as rising costs bite. Drivers, passengers wail about economic woes. And I know a lot of people have to travel during this period. So if people doing intra-city transportation aren't using ride-hailing apps, obviously they're turning to the conventional means of transportation.
Absolutely.
So what becomes the fate of people? By the way, most of them essentially live on that, the various ride-hailing applications. That's what they live on. Some of them have to remit at the end of the week because it's on high purchase and the rest. So what becomes their fate?
I think there's a direct debit arrangement with the companies, you know, that they're working for, and they get their percentage. But of course, there's been a big plunge in the revenue earnings coming from accruing to that transport sector.
Oh dear. And they have complained about the percentage they also have to give to the ride-hailing companies themselves. Not the ones who gave them the vehicle, but the ones giving them the platform to use. So it's a lot, really. And this is a major part of the economy, because this was an easy way for people to get some sort of money at some point. But now it looks like it's getting even tougher. Right next to that, winners and losers from Naira devaluation. I know there's been that debate. The devaluation, was it deliberate, or it was just, essentially the reality that dawned on the Naira? But the truth is, Naira has lost its value, and it keeps losing it on a daily. That's the reality. And what's even worse is the sharp practices that some people in the financial sector do. Really sad, round tripping. They get the money legally, official rates, and they go back, reintroduce it into market, sell it at the unofficial rate, black market rates, and they keep doing that. People are getting rich off of this as well. So that's also another thing. Very sad.
Well, perhaps we should ask why we see a lot of the Bureau de Change operators around the banks. What are they doing around the banks if there is no ready market for it, in the form of persons who would go and resell it? So we should also ask bank officials as well what exactly is happening.
Big questions, really. But let's leave it there for the Business Day newspaper.
And we'll go on to look at the Nigerian Observer. They lead again with that story, but from a different angle. Plateau calls for local policing rise amid claims of imminent attack on another community. That's how they captioned that story, the Nigerian Observer. And with the writer, reps Northern Minority Caucuses demand a thorough investigation into killings. Above the nameplate, you have this one here. Edo reiterates support for creatives as Shali Poppy arrives Benin for homecoming concert. Who's Shali Poppy? Her name's someone bizarre.
Are you for real?
No, don't. Please,
no.
Come on.
No. Anthony, you didn't just ask that
I asked the question, I did it deliberately.
That is one of the biggest exports from Edo State. Shali Poppy, yes, you heard right.
Interesting. Interesting. Can we go there for the concert?
Well, yes, why
try,
not? We could. I mean, if
it's end of year.
If your work permits, why not?
Yeah, we'll use the federal government 50% and use a train.
And there's even a dance to it. I mean, there's a dance to his song. His song. Yes.
Okay, that's it. Oh, yeah. Now I can connect the dots. Yes,
now
okay.
You can.
All right.
I'm glad.
Bus fares up, legroom shrinks in New Year travels. That's another pressure. Bus fares go up, legroom shrinks in New Year travels. Oh, boy. Everyone just seems to want to take advantage of everything. Relief for defected Rivers Assembly members as court extends interim order halting action by INEC PDP. That story is on page 2, and that's it from the Nigerian Observer.
Well, I'm wondering whether we still have any left here, but
Nigeria.
I'm looking at Daily Independent here because they have a story that is, quite telling, which is something that We've also seen UN deeply alarmed by deadly Plateau communities' attacks. Indeed, the United Nations issued a statement yesterday asking the federal government to thoroughly investigate what is currently happening in Plateau State. I mean, it is untenable. 200 people, almost 200 people in overnight killings. The international community is certainly very concerned by what is happening in the north central states, because Plateau is the one that has now come under focus. But that's not the only state that has been affected by this, killing sprees. There's any other word we can find. Massacre will also be a very suitable word. Ask federal government to probe incidents thoroughly, hold culprits to account. Gunmen have sent letter of impending attack. That's according to Middle Belt Forum. That is right there as well. Look at this. CBN investigator warns TTB investors of dire consequences, rejects their request to delay appearance until 2024, threatens Titan Trust Bank, UBN risk losing shares to federal government. So this is quite serious right there. You also have a number of other stories on the corner of this paper. Court extends order restraining INEC from conducting election to replace Rivers Assembly lawmakers, so that is still there. SIM-NIN linkage. Telco subscriber base revenue may record further decline. So it does appear that, this controversy is still on as to, whether or not people have been able to link their SIMs with their NINs. Was this really that difficult for people to be able to link their numbers?
To Margaret, the processes are simple yet difficult. That's all I can say.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it there for Daily Independent. They have a number of other stories, but you saw the lead story right there. UN deeply alarmed by deadly Plateau killings. Well, that's where we'll have to leave it also for our newspaper review segment. We'll be back shortly to take a deeper dive into some of the major happenings for this year with some of our guests. Please stay with us.
It is another election period and another time to put to test the capability, capacity and competence of INEC to conduct free, fair and credible elections as residents of Kogi, Bayelsa and Imo states head to the polls to elect their leaders for the next 4 years. Civil society organizations who deployed monitoring resources to these states are one by one at separate briefings reeling out their preliminary findings.
Yaga Africa received a worrying report of manual accreditation of voters in PU 005-006 St. Martin's School, Ejule St. Martin's School, Ejule Ward 003, Ofu local government in Kogi State, where the polling officials refrained from accrediting voters with the beavers and manually accredited voters.
Regrettably, electoral violence has remained a sore point in this election. Electoral violence was reported in the Kini local government area, specifically in Agala, Ogene, PU, and Batao. A thug was reportedly shot and killed by military officials while fleeing in an attempt to snatch a ballot box. There was also a similar attempt in Ganaja PU at Jekuta local government, where the LGA chair was apprehended by voters.
Reports from Situation Room field observers indicate that a majority, 86% of the polling units observed in Kogi State opened by the official opening time of 8:30 a.m. While in Bayelsa State, 66% of the polling units visited opened by 8:30 a.m. In Imo State, opening of poll was delayed in many polling units, as reports from our observers show that only 26% of the polling units visited upon by 8:30 a.m.
They also make recommendations.
We call on INEC and security agencies to ensure the peaceful and transparent conclusion of these elections.
We call on INEC to suspend the elections in polling units / local government areas which reported incidents of pre-filled local government area and pre-filled result sheets in those local governments.
Though they commiserated with INEC over the boat mishap and condemned the abduction of INEC senior presiding officers, they still berated the electoral umpire for not learning from the lessons from the general elections in February 2023 and repeating similar mistakes. Victor Matthias, Channels Television News.
Well, if 2023 were to be given a name, just as China gives names to years, like 2023, the year of a water rabbit, for Nigeria it'll be the year of elections, naturally, because this year packed so much elections. We had the general elections, the off-cycle elections, which you just saw there in Kogi, Bayelsa, and Imo. So this year was fully packed with politics. But there's been a lot of, yes, political activities, but let's pick up the pieces and really look deeply into how this year panned out politically and how we can rate the year, hoping to learn from it. And of course, move into the new year, 2024. And to do that with us this morning, we're joined by Chris Kwaja, who is an associate professor, international relations and strategic studies, Modibo Adama University, Yola, also country director of the United States Institute of Peace, USIP, joins us virtually this morning from Jos. Good morning. Thank you for joining us on Sunrise Daily. And right here in our studio is Anthony Killer, Professor of Strategy and Development and Director, Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies, is right here with us in our Lagos studio. It's good to have you as well, Prof.
Good to be here.
Good to see you after a while, I must say.
Good to be here.
You know, the year of politics, I don't know what you'll call 2023, but we had a lot of politics. But I'd like to start by getting your thoughts. Was 2023 the year we regressed politically or progressed politically for you, that is?
Oh dear, that's amazing you put it that way. I didn't see that coming. So let's start from the known, the familiar, and the indisputable. Definitely a year of politics, definitely a year of election, definitely a year of alignment. And of course, when you have political battles, some people lose, some people win. It'll be interesting to see who lost, who won, and why. Have we progressed? I think not. I think overall we've not progressed politically. But I did not see major regression, by the way. You know, we're just sort of there, you know, tinkling left and right. Nothing major has really happened. You know, the trajectory is about the same. So if you're looking like a graph, I don't want to bore people on early in the morning, but if you're looking at a graph, you won't see a major shift. You know, you just see some tiny movements here and there. So, which is a shame, you know, because you know, as a political economist, I ask for quantum leaps generally in things. So we haven't seen that. We're just what we are. Some, and I'm sure you want to look at that later, some individuals, some organizations have gained, many have lost. And so I think that it is a political year.
So overall, you think we didn't make progress?
No, I do not think we made major progress because in 2023, progress is majorly determined by transparency, swiftness, and electronic measures. You know, that is the world we are now. You know, if it was about 100 years ago, it would have been about language. Are you moving from Latin to English and to other popular language? It would have been about prose. It would have been about the kind of document. But we live in an era where most things are measured digitally. And we need to be conscious of that in everything we do. And, you know, and to that extent, we haven't made a major error. One thing that a regressive step we've made is the only presence of the judiciary in political matters. That is a very bad and sad thing. You know, it shouldn't be that way. But you see, unfortunately, this is, and I'm looking at negative things. Unfortunately, we have become more partisan than before, which I think is not good for progress either.
More partisan than before.
Than before, yes.
Is that a bad thing? Doesn't that mean people are more politically aware?
It's a paradox. No, it's actually not good. You see, people say that. You know, for example, a big advocate of that, who himself is not very political, partisan at the moment, is Nasir El-Rufai. You know, he's the one who advocates that everybody should join politics. But I see the paradox, and it makes me laugh. It's not true that everybody should join politics. He has joined it, and look at where he's left at now. You see, the thing is this, by this idea of everybody being politically involved, is good to the extent that people can scrutinize and are aware of what is going on. But I repeat, and I've always said it as much as possible, it is bad to the extent that it makes politics, especially partisan politics, central in our life. By its nature, partisan politics cannot be objective. And if you have a society where non-objective factors are the driving fact, it kills the intellect, it kills the ability to be rational, ability to be honest, ability to be clear-cut.
It kills the intellect. Apolitical,
yes.
Not advised against strongly, particularly in these parts, as making you being left behind
exactly.
in the gains that would come from being more aware, and involved.
Of it. Yes.
Isn't that the case?
Exactly. And then you see what happens as well is that it makes people relative in everything they do. You know, and I've done this experiment a lot of time. I take somebody who's supporting one party, I show them something and I say, oh, look at what this party said. They go all against it. And I'll show them that actually it's your party that said so. Then they go, oh, well, you know, it all depends. And it has become a form of life in the country. So we have a new generation of sophists. Go and look at them on the Twitter. You know, once it's something their side is doing, it's okay, it's bread and butter. One is the other side is disgusting.
I see the point you're making. Very interesting. Let me go to Associate Professor Chris Kwaja, and I wonder what you think about the year 2023, politically speaking. I know a lot of people, and I see it, particularly politicians, will say, well, our democracy is nascent, okay? You can't compare us with the United States. You know, they're grandfathers in that. We've just had, 30 years or thereabout, or even less than that, 24 years in this Fourth Republic. So, you know what, we're still making some of the mistakes we ought to make. For you, did we regress or progress, politically speaking?
Thank you very much. I think when you get caught up in this crisis of binaries in the context of making a choice between blue and white or black and white, good, bad, then you have this very complicated position where myself and my colleagues sit in terms of where are we in terms of our political trajectory. And I think for me, the responses have been mixed depending on where you stand. But for us as intellectuals, we should be able to provide clear-cut responses. And clear-cut responses in the context of our political trajectory is that we are yet to make the kind of meaningful movement that is required of a country that has experienced over 2 decades of uninterrupted elections. We've seen elections that produced controversial outcomes, either in terms of the inability of INEC to discharge its role as expected, elections where the politicization of the process was one that brought in the military and the police as the ones that are determining how these elections should move. We've seen the judiciary being on trial itself. We expected the judiciary to be a temple of justice, but the reactions out there is that we've not seen the judiciary discharge that.
It appears we have connection challenges through to Mr. Kwajak, I believe. I hope I got his name correctly.
In a way, situation where the judiciary now. where you have a situation whereby the judiciary is now determining who wins an elections rather than the people, then you have a real political issue to deal with. That is from the political side. When we come to the whole question of diversity management in the context of how Nigeria as a country that has to host, to hold together people of different nationalities and religions, we see also some of the crises around how we are able to accommodate ourselves as one indivisible entity. Today, when you look at 2023, from a two-fighting situation of communal conflict to more about organized crime in the context of what bandits, insurgent groups, siege, that on its own is a major challenge that we are having. And the key question is, does the Nigerian state have the power, the capacity, and the ability to really address organized crime in the context of what we see today as bandits and armed groups holding communities siege? And I think for me, that's one of the conversations that I think we need to hold as a people to ensure that the state reassert itself as the sole guarantor and controller of the instruments of coercion.
I was hoping you wouldn't, run ahead of the subject matter and expand it beyond politics. I'd like us to stay with politics, Mr. Kwaja. Speaking of progression or regression, let's weigh that now against the backdrop of political participation in 2023. It was the year that we saw the emergence of what would be described now as a third force movement, maybe add to that even a fourth force movement when you consider what happened in Kano State during the presidential election. Did we progress if you see that, expansion of the political space, when we consider the obedient movement and the NNPP? So did we make progress in terms of political participation in 2023? And following the test of that system at the Assembly, where we now have a bipartisan legislature, would you consider the test of, politics, in terms of the colors at the National Assembly, progress as well?
This is not the first time that a third force or a fourth force will emerge. As we look at what is happening within the context of the presidential elections, we also need to look at what is happening at the sub-national level. For now, yes, we have the National Assembly, but we are yet to see how the power play within the National Assembly will present itself in 2024. In 2023, they've used the last 6 months to settle down, and in settling down, we've seen committee appointments made, we've seen the body language of some members of the National Assembly. In 2024, there will be clarity around whether or not the ruling party will be able to work with all the other political parties, or there will be an emasculation of other political parties in the context of. I have not seen the kind of third force that we envision in this country, a third force that will emerge and rise above the sentiments of regions, of ethnicity, of religion, a third force that, regardless of who is being presented as the face of that third force, it should be a Nigerian face. It should be a face with the capacity to mobilize Nigerians. A face that every Nigerian will see he or herself has been represented in the manifesto of that third face, in terms of the kind of leadership structure that will emerge in the context of how citizens vote. But one of the major challenges we have had with Nigeria is that third forces always emerge. Now, when they disappear, they don't strengthen and fortify their hold on society. We need a third force that will be able to engage Nigeria in a way that strengthen and deepen their political and civic consciousness beyond elections. A third force that is committed to engaging the governance process. A third force that is committed to making a mark in the whole.
Mr. Kwaja, let's address that audio challenge, and then we'll come back to you. It's really seriously impeding our conversation. I'm going to bring it to you, Mr. Killer. The same question. Essentially, I'm trying to understand what Mr. Kwaja is saying. I'm wondering whether he's saying that we missed out on the opportunity to scoop the gains from the emergence of a third and a fourth force. Perhaps you could take all of that in your response, Professor.
Well, I think from his own view, I think what he says, what Kwaji says, is that the third force is not the real third force he designed. You know, he designed something pan-Nigeria, generally accepted and universally acclaimed as the alternative. But I think that is utopistic because, you know, he has just this kind of Jesus Christ that everybody will accept, regardless of the position. The truth of the matter is that, unfortunately, I don't know even if it's unfortunate anymore, because I'm getting tired of using that adjective, is that Nigerian politics is very mad, is very marked by ethnicity. So at the moment, a lot of people don't care where I'm from. They just know me as Anthony Killer. They buy my books, they read my essays, they argue with me, they like me or loathe me. The day I become a partisan politician, they will dig where I'm from. Then it will then matter where I'm from in Nigeria, and that's what politics does to you. As long as I'm the professor of strategy and development, it really doesn't matter to people. You see, that is part of the downside of politics. Then to look at it and then to realize that, oh, maybe some of my friends are from this part of the country, maybe some of them are part of the country. It is not an accident of nature. It is the laziness and the greediness of our political class, that rather than focusing on ideas and policy, because let's face it, and this, people should take this as no disrespect, but generally speaking, our politicians are not very original thinkers. They're not very innovative. If you look at them generally, and this is across spectrum, you can see that in most cases they have width, but they lack depth. You can see they're headline readers. Most of them are not book readers. You can
You're
see
talking about majority of
our politicians.
The ones in
and I
government
say
right
this across opposition and government. You know, I said we have a sense of responsibility that if you look at them, you really see that they're not marked by deep political philosophy.
So it's the ethnic coloration.
Exactly. They grab on shortcuts, ethnic colorations, religions, division. You even say young person, and that kills me, a young person talking about zoning. Say, I want to do this because last time it was from in a state. Because it was from this zone, now it's from this zone. You can see how pedestrian that is. So
sorry, did they force that thinking on the people, or it's a reflection of actually what is predominantly the thinking of the people?
No, when it comes to social constraint, it's always leadership.
So you think the politicians
forced it on people? Yeah, it's you see, anytime it's not a natural phenomenon like a mountain or a sea, even sea is being diverted now. People should be very careful. Everything is an acquired state, is acquired taste. Anything social is artificial, is man-made. The way we dress, what we like, our idea of what is beautiful and what is just is what we were taught. Nobody naturally wakes up and starts liking a particular color.
But if I could puncture your argument, if it was ethnic coloration, in your view, that made us miss out on the opportunity of getting a real third and fourth force, some of these parties were embraced in regions of the country that, would have been unlikely if we would have thought about it ahead of the elections. For instance, in states where the LP won, the election, the presidential election. They won in states like Niger, they won in the FCT, and no one would have thought that they could make a good showing in those states.
Well, I think a lot of observers missed the capacity of the LP. We call it LP. They didn't actually vote for LP. They voted OB, obedient, and OB. We have to be careful about that as well, because there's a personalization, so that when Kwaji says the third force starts and disappears, what we actually see is not a movement, an ideological movement, but an embracing of a person or a personality. So a lot of people missed that capacity. You know, they were saying no structure. They didn't have anything. Some of us were silent as they look at this thing. I think that
so that's not ethnic coloration. That's politicking.
That's politicking. It's a generational swift. The young people were able to identify with that. And I think, so when we're talking about what are the good or bad things in 2023 politics, I think the advancement of the young people is something that we should note. How positive or negative? I think it is positive in the sense that you have a force coming on. But let me say this, against with all sense of responsibility, their language was terrible. The attitude was stinking. You know, it was really a very, sort of coercive thing. It wasn't a democratic, dialectical, ideological, persuasive stance of politicking. It was passionate. It was, I was going to say violent, but in reality, they were never physically violent. But I think they were violent in terms of language. But as I've written, and I think I had this argument against Professor Wole Soyinka, and I said that, but we need to be indulgent of them, because these are young people who are passionate, who see black and white. So therefore, you cannot tell them to be calm. It is not a time to be moderate. And, you know, and we must say this. If you're moderate as a young person, you're going to have a mediocre life. It is important at one stage in our life, we should be radical. Then as we grow, we understand moderation. If at a young age you're already moderate, that is not a good life.
It's very interesting the way the conversation is, because some other people argue that there was also the ethnic coloration for the third force, the overwhelming vote it got from a bloc, a regional bloc, and the rest. So it looks like there's always a mix here and there.
It's a mix, and we go back to where I'm coming from. Because of the kind of politics we've been taught to play, anything partisan, anything political would have ethnic coloration.
Okay.
Because people are going to look for it, and they will find it.
You know, we have a third and fourth force also on the show, and I'm talking Mark Baer and Neota in our British studios. Over to you guys, Mark Baer.
Well, thank you, Kayode. I do know that, you know, when you started the conversation in Lagos, you said that if this year was going to have a name, it would have been the year of elections. But I dare challenge that and say that, you know, perhaps there would have been a tug of war between the year of the economy and the year of the elections, especially with regards to what has happened with subsidy. But before we go there, we have some news coming in that another community of Budil in Tangor district of Bokos local government area was attacked over the night by assailants. A Transition Implementation Committee Chairman of Bokos Local Government Council, Mr. Monday Kasa, confirmed that security agencies responded to the distress call from the community late Thursday night, where houses were burnt, but no death recorded owing to the timely response from security personnel. The local government chairman explained that the number of deaths still remain around the range of 195, with an uncertain number of missing persons as the rescue mission is still ongoing. So just again, another community, this time of Budil in Tangor district of Bokos local government area, attacked overnight by assailants. Thankfully, no deaths recorded as a result of the timely intervention of security personnel. So this is also part of what it is that we're looking at this year. If we can go back to the conversation now, the fact that security continues to remain at the front burner, continues to remain a major concern for many Nigerians, especially in rural areas. Yes, in cities and in also urban areas. There are places where security continues to remain a concern, kidnapping, one chance, etc., daily crimes. But when it comes to killing of this scale, you know, security continues to be on the front burner. So I would like to ask our guest this morning, when you review security, you know, some people will say, oh, well, if we're to compare with, say, 2022, where at the very beginning of the year, big bang, security was right there at the very beginning. Attacks in Niger State, attacks in Kaduna, and all of those places, seeing the deaths of people about this number at the beginning of the year. But later on, we saw it taper down somewhat. 2023 has not been that loud on security, perhaps as a result of the elections. But if you were to look at it generally, would you really say that we've made progress on the security front. Let me ask you, Mr. Chris Kwaja, you are right there in Jos, where things are currently a bit somber as a result of these attacks. Would the people of Plateau State, where you currently live, say that they've made progress on the security front?
I will speak from the perspective of what is happening in Plateau, as well as what I see across the country. We've not made the kind of progress that is expected of the Nigerian security. And this lack of progress I'm talking about is hinged on certain foundational challenges that our security forces are confronted with. When we talk of responses, deployments in terms of logistics and capability to effectively address distress calls by citizens, we are talking of a country of 200 million people with about 300,000 military. Take out other parts of the military that are not involved in direct internal security operations. How many of these military personnel are on ground to effectively respond to distress calls across this country? And I give you an example. If you have 50 armed bandits attacking a community, how many security personnel do we have the capacity to send to that particular community to respond with the kind of proactiveness that is required? I'm not sure we will have up to 25 to be sent. Even if they are going on bikes, how will they be able to even access those communities? We are talking of just one community. How many communities do we have in this country right now that are under direct military deployment? We talk of the police. Where you have the military on the ground, the police plays second fiddle in that community. How many of the mobile police personnel do we have? Many of them are on protection of VIPs. They are protecting other public buildings. They are not on ground to do the everyday policing jobs that we expect. It's unfortunate that Plateau today is a state where since 2001 we've had the military on ground under the guise of internal security management or operations. When you have an over-militarized environment like Plateau or the Northeast, it raises a very serious question about state capacity. And what we are witnessing across Nigeria today is that because the state has not been able to effectively confront and deal with this issue, citizens are losing trust in the state as the sole provider and guarantor of security. And they are now resorting to other means outside the state for self-protection and self-defense. And that on its own creates a huge governance and security problematic that we are seeing across the country today, where even respect for the state and its institution is going down. My sense is that there is a need for the Nigerian state to really take a more decisive action by looking at its own capacity to deal with this issue. I've not seen that conversation taking place in a way that brings in all the stakeholders in this country to really help with this design of a new security arrangement that will help in addressing this problem. Because it is not the responsibility of the military. It's a policing issue. Today, many communities do not even have police presence. If you have communities with no police presence, no governance presence, and the only time they are seeing the state is when there is an emergency, as we see, then there's a real problem to deal with. Because we need a state that is able to effectively govern. And governing communities means state presence. And in that context, what we have today as military and security personnel are far from adequate in terms of what is needed. They must be adequate. There must be adequacy. They must be properly kitted. Because when you don't deal with the welfare of this personnel, how many security personnel are willing to present themselves to confront bandits when they know that they have their own personal challenges to deal with within their own families? How many of them are ready to sacrifice for the country? We've had instances where security personnel sacrificed in the past. The Civil War, Maitasine, and during the Boko Haram insurgency in the Northeast. But that has gone down. It has gone down because the welfare of the military and other security personnel has gone down drastically. When you engage, and I've done that, engage many of these individuals privately, they give you gory pictures of their own situation. And that you expect me to go and die for a country that does not care for me. Who cares for my family? Our security personnel are aware and are alive to see how their colleagues who retire are suffering when it comes to their pensions and other gratuity. And you are telling him to go and die. If he dies, his family will be subjected to that same trauma. So we've seen that whole question of nationalism and patriotism on the part of our security personnel gone down. And where you have this kind of situation, you are far from addressing this whole issue of banditry. And that's why you find even connivers or armorists of the military sometimes attacked, or even personnel engage in the sale of weapons with criminals. And for me, that's a very unfortunate situation we are confronted with.
Well, indeed, the security situation continues to remain very disturbing from communities, as you've highlighted, who are dealing with no state presence at all. And I think if my colleague were here, Ayo, he will continue to emphasize the total collapse in many instances of the local government structure, because the local government should be the one, giving the people some sense of government presence at that level. But in this case, we talk about no government presence, no security presence in some communities, and in some other instances, a situation whereby states have been militarized. You've given the example of the Northeast and even Plateau State, where you currently reside. But for the places where we've seen militarization, the question is, are we seeing results? Are the results evident? Because Operation Safe Haven has operated in Plateau State for many years. It's been a standing force in place in that state. Our intelligence agencies, big questions are now being asked of them. So even in the last resort that we've had in terms of holding on to the military or even asking them to maintain a standing force in some states, have we seen the sort of results that we ought to see as a result of putting in these ad hoc arrangements, which are becoming semi-permanent somewhat?
Across communities, not just in Plateau, Nigeria, and I've had the opportunity of visiting many of these states, what you find is that militarization in the context of the prolonged stay of the military in a community have created two results. One, gross violation of human rights that have been unchecked. Two, the fear itself that has become the dominant feature of civil-military relations in those communities, and that this fear have also led to the breakdown of policing responsibilities, because I've had and I've seen firsthand instances where the military personnel are involved in conflict management issues. You see people subjected to frog jumps or being flogged by military personnel. When you ask, they say they committed offense A, B, C. That's purely a policing responsibility. But the military, because of its prolonged stay, have weakened policing capacity in those communities and have taken on roles that are not their own. We've not seen the National Human Rights Commission undertake what I call human rights audits across communities where the military have had prolonged stay, with a view to understanding the extent to which the human rights violations have been perpetrated in those communities and the kind of remedies or access to justice that should be put in place in order to strengthen civil-military relations. The military has on its own tried to win the hearts and minds of communities by providing them with either clinics, boreholes, but we are talking about the software, not the hardware, on civil military relations.
Professor Kwaja, let me quickly go to Professor Kila in Lagos, so that we can also get his thoughts on the review of security for the year 2023. This Plateau incident has highlighted it, brought it into relief for us to be able to examine what has happened throughout the year 2023, if we've made progress or if we've not. What are your thoughts, Professor Kila?
Well, I think the short answer is that we've not made progress. And the Plateau attack reiterates the sad tradition of people attacking communities. Well, I say people, terrorists attacking communities at festive period, Christmas and another kind of festivity. This idea of them attacking people on Christmas Day or festivities is something we should take note of seriously, because there's a general consensus that the way to fight terrorism is through socio-economical activities. I agree with that. You know, unemployment, education, that is something we need to do. It is also said that there should be information for people to know what to do and to be able to share intelligence with security forces to avoid terrorist attack. I think that should be done as well. But I also would like to call the attention of everybody to the fact that terrorists are evil people. You know, people who go out there to go and destroy Christmas Day, you know, a day of joy and merriment, whether you believe or not, are very bad people. So whilst we should, as a state, do our best to deter people from joining them, when we get to arrest some of them, my argument is that we should deal with them in a very ferocious way, so that those who are caught should pay dearly. To do that, of course, the state needs to be able to present itself as a state. And in terms of this kind of battle, the state needs to show legitimate, superior force at all times. And I think therein lies the problem. That is why we're not making progress, because you talk about the operation that has been in Plateau all this while, and we're still having the problem. I think we really need to rethink our security. The state is not showing itself to be superior. The state is not showing itself to have a force that can overwhelm terrorists, and that is what is needed. So one of the consequences of militarization of state is the abuse of civil rights, we're told, of human rights, we're told. And I think that's the true thing. But you see, somebody also needs to say it very clearly to soldiers who abuse rights, that they're simply thugs and bullies. Someone needs to call them out. We need to understand in this country that the military person has no right to tell anybody job wrong. A military person or police or military, they have no right to beat anybody. And when they do that, there should be consequences for that. Let us assume that somebody has violated any rule or law or regulation. The role of the military is to march them to court, is to march them for process immediately. So we need to make that speedy. And until we understand that sense, that the military should deploy their force, their ferocious force, or the police where needed, we're going to be in trouble. Because how can they be so ferocious and with civilians, and yet they're not able to deal with terrorists? You know, just total rubbish, if you allow me to say that. And I think it should be dealt with that way. Sometimes when I, drive, even in cities, I look at these policemen with all their guns standing on the road, and my comment inside me is, what are you doing here? Why don't you go to the forest where they're terrorists, instead of disturbing me on the road in Lagos or anywhere across the country? I think we need to share that mindset so that we can prioritize the importance of protecting lives and properties. And really, and I want people to think about the meaning of the word terrorism. These are people who want to inflict terrors on us. So there should be no justification, no alignment for them. They should be declared enemies and treated as such.
All right. Professor Killer, let me start with you, and then maybe we'll get Professor Kwaja to weigh in as well on this matter. You said earlier, Kari asked a question, and you said we've not made any progress, politically speaking. But if you go by the Constitution, it says the number one priority of the government is to protect the lives, security, and welfare of its citizens. While we're having this conversation about the political space, we do recruitment every 4 years, recruiting personnel that will run the nation or at different levels every 4 years. And you say we've not made any progress in that. I would like you to weigh in on that, but also tying to the fact that we also need personnel for the security that we were talking about. The last time we had a security consultant, they were talking about the fact that they're not even enough to cover the whole country, and there's so much of work to be done. How do we solve that in terms of creating awareness, educating the people, educating the government, so that political interest can be put aside to focus on the matter of executing that responsibility in the Constitution?
Well, I think we just need a commonsensical approach, and I use common sense here as defined by Vico, which is a combination of our experience, exposure, and education. When we say common sense, it doesn't mean you're born with it. It just means that you grow into it. But I'm very surprised that this president, who's now 6 months old on that position, has not gone for massive recruitment of security forces, because he said it even before he became candidate. Remember the famous Agbado thing. I think that mindset is there, and I'm surprised we're not following that. We definitely need to recruit more people so that we can overwhelm the enemies we have, the terrorists. But I also think that we need to fine-tune our operation. So Nigeria does not make arms. Nigeria does not generally produce rifles and bombs and bullets, generally speaking. And yet, these terrorists have them. So it tells you that we need to work on our borders for them, stop them from getting it in. We also need to work with our finance system to stop them to be able to buy arms. Then we also need to work on our intelligence by deploying not just gathering intelligence, but also technology. So there are ways, and I say these things, it fascinates me because most of our security media attend these seminars where these things are discussed. There's nothing very original in how to fight terrorism again. The experiences to look at from the Black Panther, the Red Brigade in Italy, the group in Spain, the Irish one. There are case studies to study for those who are interested. Of course, you need to adapt it to your system. So in the Nigerian system, there is a general assumption, a consensus that the reason why terrorism thrives is, one, there's a disconnect with the state. Two, a lot of ignorance. Three, poverty. Four, ability for terrorists to group. And five, inability of the state to act. If we look at those factors, we can't deal with it.
As we wind down now, I'd just like to end with this one on a final note, and I'll go to Associate Professor Chris Kwaja. We always want to end the conversations with some sort of life skills, as it were. Since we've reviewed, let's sort of preview the coming year. If there's one thing you'd like to equip Nigerians with, the people, politically speaking now, what you want them to do different in the coming year, such that we can have better politics, better governance, and of course the dividends of the governance, what will that one thing be? Okay, I don't know if you heard that. I just wanted you to speak to Nigerians. If you were to give them just one life skill, political life skill, things that you want them to do better in the coming year, what would that one thing be?
Nigerians must improve on their civic consciousness. Civic consciousness in terms of their understanding of the danger that politics can do to them if they are not proactively involved in deciding who governs them.
Right.
Number two,
well, I asked for one, but I think you're giving us an extra as an end-of-the-year gift. But we have to wind down now. But quickly, you can make that point.
Yeah, our commitment to a Nigeria that works for all should be an abiding one. And that should form, for me, the foundational construct of our pledge as Nigerians.
So be more politically aware and then commitment to a Nigeria that works. I wish we could go on and on with this, but I guess we'll be picking up sometime soon. Professor Anthony Killer, thank you so much. Professor of Strategy and Development, Director, Commonwealth Institute of Advanced and Professional Studies. Thank you so much for your time, as well as Associate Professor Chris Kwaja, International Relations and Strategic Studies, Modibo Adama University, Yola, Country Director, USIP. Gentlemen, thank you once again. We'll take a moment now on the program. When we return, well, can I call it a special segment? It's still about politics, but this will definitely interest you, so please don't go away. Stay with us.
Have you heard that you can now print glossy, high-quality, 7 pages, A2 size wall calendars for just 120,000 Naira only, and A3 size for just 60,000 Naira only, and it will be produced and delivered to anywhere of your choice in Nigeria within 96 hours, without even having to leave your room. Listen, this is how it works. Just open WhatsApp, send your pictures and other content, and you will receive your custom design online for your approval within 24 hours. What are you waiting for? Call our hotline for more details on 0913-156-5016, 0812-794-9323, or 0815-508-8279, or visit our social media pages. Cast Prints, digital printing at super speed.
Heartburn and indigestion? Try Just Eat. My recommendation for the past 26 years, Just Eat. Reliable remedy for heartburn, indigestion, flatulence, and acidity.
Now for us, our story be started. Still not for our life to take the go. Walk on and say we dey grow apart. We know they feel hurt. We know all the reason ourselves like before. Devil that distraction. It dey break with connection. We supposed give attention to the things we matter for us. So no matter where we go, no matter how it be, oh, as long as it is with us, oh, now that place be our home. As we gather the gist, oh, with the jolly, now that place be our home. The coolele feeling our heart, the totally our body, that place be our home. Oludi, Labour Party, Oludi, Labour Party, Labour Party, who's your guy? Now Olumide Apata, Oludi. See how sweet they like beans and rice. Labour Party, I will never leave your side. I will never ever. I dedicate my time forever, time to you, my people. Even if the road is rough, I know mine. Cause together we shall stand. Oludi, Labour Party, who's your guy? Now Olumide Apata, Cause we dey like beans and rice. Cause together we
I will continue our conversation in this stock-taking week with one man that a lot of people have wondered, where has he been? And probably starting more from that point of recruitment process in our political space, please join us to welcome Honorable Patrick Obahiagbon, former member, House Leader, Edo State House of Assembly, former member, Federal House of Representatives, former Chief of Staff to former Governor Adams Oshomole, a lawyer, a public figure, a father, a brother, a friend. Honorable Obahiagbon, thank you for joining us this morning.
So much. Good morning.
We'll start off from that point. Where have you been? You have been quiet and not so much in the public space. What's going on?
So nice to interface with the Channels family this morning. I congratulate you people for what you are doing, engaging government, engaging the public. Two fundamental reasons explains my pro tempore absence from the public space. Two fundamental reasons. One, in the last 8 years, I came to the conclusion that the more you engaged in any genuine animadversion or objurgation, or if you like, call it critical engagement with the last government, particularly Mr. President then, the more President Muhammadu Buhari remained ossified, the more he remained ardent, locking himself up in the cyclopean mansion of the world, the pillar. And for me, my brother, I don't engage in political soliloquy. So I wasn't going to join the circles of any political soliloquy. So a man who was not ready to listen to the people. The second reason flows from that, which is that early enough in life, I was privileged to question, why is man on earth? What is man's mission? When man passes through transition or he undergoes the grand initiation, where does man go to? These are eschatological questions. And I came to early realization from my studies that the only business of man on earth is the progressive evolution of his soul personality. So that when you reintegrate with Omni, you are able to progressively evolve your soul personality until you are privileged again by the laws of karma to have the breath of life for the next incarnation. So when we had a president that was not listening to anybody, law being my profession, politics being my vocation, and mysticism being my life, I decided to ensconce and cocoon myself in a mystical aqua where I've had to study and practice deeply mystical, metaphysical, and a meticulous, by the way, not only for myself, but on behalf of the collectivity of our common humanity.
So you would definitely have something to say about some of the national issues that have been happening since you went into your cocoon, as you said.
In any case, let me quickly say that I came out of that cocoon when President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu contested for that election. You will recall that if you are taking more than a passive observance of the unfolding political cinematography at that time, myself and Honorable Abeke Dabiri Erewa managed the campaigns for him and the party across the 36 states. And I had the rare privilege of introducing now President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu in most of the states when we went for campaign before he addressed the audience. So I've been following, therefore, the affairs of government very keenly and very intensely.
You know, Honorable Obahagban, let's look at that election of 2023. I mean, my colleague started out the first segment by calling this year, if we were to name this year, we'll call it the year of politicking or the year of elections, like the Chinese will always name their years. But let's look at that 2023 elections. It threw up a lot of fault lines that hitherto hadn't been given much attention. Ethnic divides, religious divides, all of those things came to the fore in these 2023 elections. And now the elections are over. Amongst the first things that happened, subsidy gone, price hikes of practically everything, and inflation out there. And the Nigerians are screaming, what is going on? We were hoping that with the last administration going, things will be looking better, but it looks as if it got worse.
Yes. Regarding my impressions about the 2023 elections before we delve into the aqua of what has happened since the inauguration of this new government, it was sad and lugubriously so that we were still talking about religion, we were still talking about tribalism and ethnicity. These are very primordial sentiments that we must grow as a nation. Certain lessons from that election, certain lessons in our electoral jurisprudence. But even before we get into all that, let me say that I was maniacally bewildered that some persons really believed that they were going to win that election. You take Atiku Abubakar, for example, who litigated this matter up to the Supreme Court. How did Atiku Abubakar, for example, thought he was going to win that presidential election when he came into the election with an atrabilously macadamized political party? A PDP that was redolent with political acerbity, asperity, causality, darkness, virulence, acrimony, and morosity. So for some of us, and I want to believe for serious social-political thinkers, they were not going to be surprised by the outcome of that elections as it affected the presidential candidate of PDP. Outside Atiku, another man that showed a great impact. Another man that made a great impact from the point of view of challenging the entrenched political culture in Nigeria was Peter Obi, who rode on the crest of the recusancy of the Nigerian demographic youths who have come to have a righteous indignation, for what they saw as the politics of atavism, by the two major political parties. But in any case, in one interview I granted before that election, I made a prognostication that Peter Obi was not going to win that election. And why? Because his political peregrination suffered a political thalidomide ab initio when he hinged his campaign on the politics of Frankenstein's parapolism and religion. And in any case, his bold, very audacious and clinical attempt to distance himself from the political Asian regime did not fly, because in truth and indeed, Peter Obi was himself a part of the Asian regime, of the political Asian regime. It's just that, like I said, the two major political parties before now have not done anything spectacular. So the youths were really indignant, and Peter Obi just rode on that crest. So at the end of the day, the people saw it for what it was. And what was it? A mere political skyamaki, bordering and verging on flossy, nausea, nihilipilification. Mm-hmm. So those were my prognostications at that time, which came to pass. Yes, lessons for INEC, lessons for electoral jurisprudence. Yes, I want to believe that going forward, we should begin to tinker with our electoral act. I must say, however, that The 2002 Electoral Act as amended is one of the most finest pieces of legislation for re-engineering electoral democracy.
Well, if I may come in, the Igodo Migodo, you certainly have sorely been missed around here. I'm sure you're going to be getting responses from our viewers very soon. And I know that, you had your own predictions for 2023. However, 2024 is a few days away. In fact, a few hours, one can say, in terms of when you look at the time that we have between now and Monday. Your state, Edo State, is going to be coming into focus because another election is going to be happening there. A new governor for Edo State will be elected come 2024. And you're a politician. You've called politics your vocation, and being a lawyer your profession. So can you tell us from how you're seeing the political arrangements? Because some people have said the way 2024 is looking, it is uncertain just what is going to happen. They think that Labour Party, even though you have dismissed the wave, the crest upon which Mr. Peter Obi rode to be the presidential candidate of the Labour Party and the movement, they think they're going to be a major force come 2024 in Edo State politics. Do you agree with them?
In that same interview that I granted before the presidential elections, I did say, and that is going to be a prolegomena to answer your question. I did say at that time that whereas we had 3 presidential candidates, i.e. candidate Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, now president Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, 2 Atiku Abubakar, and 3 Peter Obi. I said, however, that we had only 2 major political parties going into that race. The APC and the PDP. So the Labour Party is not a practiced political party. It rode on the crest and popular wave of what looked like a pathological and psychological animosity for the politics of the Asian regime. So in those states, yes, in the last election, the obedient movement had a very great showing. But again, that was because, like I said again, he rode on the magnetic persona of Peter Obi, and that time, with the presidential election over, with the terminus ad quem of the presidential election, the Labour Party has gone into total demolience, In most of the states, including Edo State, I predict again that the election, the governorship election coming up in Edo State, is an election that is going to be largely fought between the APC and the PDP. The Labour Party, the Labour Party will not have any good showing in Edo State. And I predict that this election is for the APC to take. If we lose the election in Edo State, God forbid, that will be because we've not been able to manage very well the internal dynamics going to usher in the party primaries. It will mean equally we've not been able to manage very well the post-acceptability and asperity arising from the party primary. Otherwise, I can see the victory of APC in Edo State is as honestly clear like the biblical teke mene you fasting. Because the PDP in Edo State is divided, is balkanized across the line into very atomistic, several atomistic parts. You know, it's hard to take.
The current governor of the state, Godwin Obaseki, will certainly disagree with you. I mean, he has emphasized over and over again that the PDP is one united party in Edo State. And he keeps rallying around. You know, I think he would also say that what you're currently saying is it will continue to happen until a governorship candidate emerges on the platform of the PDP. It's something that the APC also will have to deal with. But it's interesting. I mean, I would not expect you to say that another party will take it because you're still a partisan member of the political class in Edo State. So I'm not going to press you on that. However, let me take you up on INEC because lots of people had confidence in INEC pre the 2023 elections as a result of what they had seen it do in Edo State in the 2019 or 2020 elections. As a result of the 2020 elections and how INEC conducted itself, they had very strong, confidence in the electoral management body that it could deliver on very transparent polls in 2023. However, we've seen that that's not been the case. I mean, 2023 elections have been hotly contested. And then the off-cycle elections that have now been conducted in Imo, Bayelsa, and Kogi states have left a lot to be desired. So for you, looking at what we've seen happen in 2023, how confident are you that the electorate in Edo State will have sufficient confidence, or what do you think the electoral body needs to do to be able to build confidence in the people of Edo that it is capable of conducting free, fair, and credible elections in the state?
Thank you so much. I will answer that question. But even before I attempt to answer that question, let me press myself. You said you were not going to press me, but I have decided to press myself on the issue you have raised on the possibility of PDP taking the state. I don't see Governor Obaseki and the Chief Dan Obi group agglutinating in spite of the tenacious and pertinacious attempt at the dying minute for the governor to bring about a coalition. It will not work. As we are talking now, the sitting deputy governor of the state has sided with the chief also Dan Obi group. I am telling you, this election, my sister, is for the asking. It's not just because I'm an APC partisan. But having said that, let me say that the Ayatus, what looked like the Ayatus in the RF glitch during the last presidential elections does not totally mean that process, that electoral process, was not a good process. It did not really mean that INEC did not perform. In any case, given the incremental reforms in our electoral infrastructure, the performance of INEC towards approximating it to the democratic net plus ultra is work in progress. But what I want to see INEC do now is to ensure that all sensitive materials for the off-cycle elections, ballot papers, result sheets, are printed in good time. They have enough time to prepare. There's enough low-cost to prepare for these elections. So there will be no justification for going into any emergency approach as they used to do. That itself has militated against the optimal performance of INEC. Secondly, I don't think that INEC should always wait till
oh dear, it appears as if, okay, Honorable Bayagbo is back now.
And sensitizing the voters. INEC should begin the process in earnest in sensitizing the voters. Materials for that election should be printed in good time. And I think because it's an off-cycle election, INEC will have all the manpower and all the resources to focus.
Honorable Bayagbo.
Over power. will not be there.
Honorable Bayagbon, indeed, you have been sorely missed. And one thing that one must give to you over the years is your stoicism, or what we'll call your seriousness, and your commitment to your style of communication, even in the face of extreme reaction from your audience, of course, which you will undoubtedly get after the program. Earlier on, when you were talking, okay, before I even get there, since we're talking about INEC, when we review the performance of INEC in the 2023 elections, either it's the general and the off-cycle elections, where we, recall late deployment of electoral materials. In some cases, even in the off-cycle election, the bypassing of the BVAS, the test of the electronic transmission of results, which turned out to be a huge dissatisfaction from the people, on the part of how INEC failed to transmit results, and so many other, aspects of the performance of INEC in the 2023 presidential election. Has INEC justified the billions, in fact, hundreds of billions of naira allocated to it to prosecute the elections?
Well, like I said, it's work in progress. No doubt, Nigerians and myself will be happy if INEC has performed more in a blaze of glory more than they have currently done. For example, I did say just now that materials coming late in the process of election at this stage of our electoral reforms, they cannot give any excuse for that. No, it certainly cannot. And beyond the RF glitch, there were other shoddy areas that INEC itself must take responsibility for. But in spite of these objurgations against INEC, in spite of the fact that I've been able to say that Nigerians should have expected a more daunting and a more scintillating performance from INEC, it has been incremental progress on the part of INEC. It has been incremental progress on the part of INEC. But that is not enough for INEC to go into the arms of mafias, or for INEC to now luxuriate in the marshmallow of electoral somnambulism. INEC should bestir itself, to be able to take account and take charge, from its electoral peccadillo so far, which is sufficiently in the public domain. In fact, highlighted, brought under focal biceps and biceps by critical Nigerians and by the media, and make an improvement.
Well, the operative words there, out of what I can understand, is incremental progress. And I wonder if, those listening will agree with you, Honorable Bayagbon. But let's review lessons from other events in 2023, since we're still in the stock-taking week. When we look at Rivers State and the political feud between the former governor and the current governor, observers would say that, it's a return to the practice of politics of crude godfatherism that has not left us. But really, did politics of godfatherism ever leave at any point in our history? Or is Rivers, showing it, making it glaring? And how can we get past this?
Okay, my sister, you see, when we discuss the current Rivers political higgledy-piggledy from the point of view of crude godfatherism, it seems that we're already wearing an analytical monocle, locating the problem alone on the supposed godfather. I must make a confession this morning, and that confession I want to make is that because of my intense spiritual life, because of my intense mystical life, and when I say spiritual life now, I'm not talking about religiosity and sociality. There's a world of difference between religiosity, sociality, and spirituality. Because of my intense spiritual life, I detest very, very, very rigorously any attempt, any act bordering on ingratitude. Because ingratitude is one of the destroyers of life. 6 months, we all saw the yeoman's job. We saw the yeoman's job. Yes, some wicked put into the installation of the governor of Rivers State, Governor Sim Fubara, as governor of Rivers State. We saw the yeoman's job. And in less than 6 months, what we see is political bellicosity, political belligerency, and political pugilism. No. That is not to say that I am encouraging those who install governors to become megalomaniacal and begin to exhibit, an authoritarian mien that borders on monomania. No, that's what I'm encouraging. But the burden of managing that relationship, at least 6 months, the burden of managing the relationship, if somebody have not told the governor of Rivers State, I must tell him this morning, he owns the greater burden in managing that relationship. Of course, Wicked too has a burden to manage the relationship, but the greater burden rests on Governor Fubara. Let me, however, commend the governor that is beginning to make the right statements, beginning to give the right signals after the presidential proclamation, which is signed. And going forward, I want to encourage him to skedaddle, by that I mean to run away from the rantings and blandishments of mandibular walkabout.
Well,
all those mandibular walkabouts, he should run away from them.
Well, Honorable Abagbon, I'm sure a lot of people might be surprised seeing that you seem to also be supporting former Governor Nyesom Wike, but hey, it's politics, and it's very interesting when you watch Nigerian politics. But I have two quick questions for you. Imagine that case, the president had to intervene, and we've seen how things have played out ever since then. But I recall that when the president announced the removal of subsidy, you described it as, let me get the word now, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, if I got that correct, which simply means good. And I saw that reported in the media. But I don't know if Nigerians have that luxury of maybe vocabulary or grammar to describe what has followed, particularly with the economic decisions of the president and other policies, inflation's on the rise, the foreign exchange, almost 1,200 naira to $1 now, and the cost of living really tough. The Yuletide is not what it used to be. So would you still describe the current reality as supercalifragilisticexpialidocious? Good, simply?
You have tried, my brother, in being initiated into that school of neologism. I say again without any degree of irrepentancy that, but watch my words this time advisedly, not the removal of subsidy by President Tinubu. I say that the implementation of the removal of West subsidy by President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu was and remains supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. Yes. That is because if you take the removal of the fuel subsidy in juxtapose with the amalgamation and agglutination of the foreign exchange regime, you will see that these were the two subsidies that had all the putrescent possibilities and proclivities, for breathing into our economic solar plexus and hemorrhagic situation where money that has been freed now, following that action, we're in the hands of some hierarchs, in the hands of some oligarchs, and in the hands of some comprador and bureaucratic bourgeoisie. No doubt, I must admit, no doubt, that following those two key necessary decisions, the cost of living has improved, the naira has nosedived. But like Mr. President said, a very empathetic leader, like the president said, when he had cause to address the nation. He did say in a national broadcast, Nigerians, be patient with me. If I had any alternative, I would have followed that route. But there's no other way. This is the only way, as painful as they are. I will not take these decisions to hurt you when I'm here to show love to my people and to Nigerians. In any case, all the presidential candidates at that time campaigned on the plank of the removal of fuel subsidy. That was the only thing to do. But Mr. President is equally taking some steps in the short run, in the medium run, and in the long run. I just appeal to Nigerians to be patient with Mr. President, and in the long run, we will see the advantages. By the way, I don't know if you have noticed that this is the first Christmas and New Year we are celebrating for a very, very long time, for a period of iron now, where we did not see fuel queues, where we did not notice scarcity of fuel and people queuing for fuel. These are part of the sanitization of that industry. Yes, is there room to do much beyond the 35,000 naira that has been given as increment on wages for 6 months? Yes, Mr. President is currently finalizing giving 25,000 naira to 15 million Nigerians who are vulnerably perished. I am aware too, and take my words to the bank, that in the new year, the promise that Mr. President gave to students that they will enjoy student loans, take my words to the bank, in the new year, that will come into operation. Equally, take my words to the bank that in the new year, a new minimum wage is being worked.
Obahagban, if I may come in here, we're almost out of time, and we would indeed take your words to the bank. The students would also be smiling when they see that happen. But you said something earlier about the president telling Nigerians to be patient with him. Nigerians are still being patient, but right now, yes, there were no fuel queues during this festive period because there was no scarcity of fuel, but there was scarcity of the cash.
Yes, I do fully agree with you that there was scarcity of cash. But you see, the situation we find ourselves now is a situation that has been piled down for a very long time due to bad governance for the last several years. Now we're having a leadership who is disciplined enough, a leadership who is audacious to take the right decision, a very empathetic leader. Let me tell one thing to Nigerians that miss Nigerians, for you to know how empathetic this president is. It's just that the villa didn't make a noise about it. You know, there was a time when the president had to commute from his Aso Villa house residence to the villa when they were putting the villa in order. And that caused a whole lot of traffic chaos and caused a whole lot of inconvenience to people around Aso Rock and its environs. I am aware that Mr. President caused his staff to do a letter of apology to everybody in that neighborhood. That is an empathetic leader that we have currently at the seat of power. It's a listening leader.
All right.
I want to show Nigerians that in the long run, this will be for the betterment of all of us.
And I think that's a good place to hang it there, that in the long run, things will get better for all Nigerians. Honorable Patrick Obahagban, I want to thank you so much for coming in this morning. And indeed, we look forward to seeing more of you now that you're out of your cocoon and you're ready to get in the mix. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. But before I round off from my side, let me thank you for bringing back under the media kaleidoscope, Oga at the top. I watched that program about 3 weeks ago, given what you went through from this piazza. I was so happy that you guys had to celebrate him when you brought him back after his retirement. That too shows empathy on your part. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you again. So back to you, Kayode and Bukola. I understand we have our colleague out there that needs to give us an update.
Well, absolutely, Nyota. We have breaking news from Kelly Giga, who is in the Ikeja area of Lagos, Computer Village. Kelly, what can you tell us about what's going on there right now?
All right, so we're just somewhere around the very popular Computer Village. And what we can tell you right now is that tenants of these shops here, there's so much desperation on their faces, and perhaps we can just pan and let's show you what we are talking about here, because these tenants who have shops here have been left perhaps in a dilemma or confusion. They have gotten reports about the need for an urgent renovation work, and their shops, we understand, are going to be demolished any moment from now. And that's why you can see the faces of those who have shops here, who have been here for many years. They've been asking questions as to why exactly now, and yet some of these questions have not been answered. We've only just arrived here a couple minutes ago, and that's why the details are really very, very sketchy. But what we can tell you is that this is not the first time this has happened. They have received such a notification of demolition in 2019, and fast forward now to 2023, they have again received another notification of a demolition exercise to happen here any moment from now. When we got on ground a few minutes ago, we also discovered that some of them are already moving their items in their shops just to prepare for the worst, perhaps. But let's bring in the chairman of these shops, who would perhaps give us some more perspective and clarity. Mr. Chairman, just very briefly, talk to us exactly why are your people standing here? What have you been told?
Anyway, it's unfortunate that we are facing this kind of a thing from some developer, that they bend on bringing this place down since 2019. Lati wa lenwe. Because 2019, Ari letter developer of one.
All right, so you have to speak in English because of our viewers, international viewers. But quickly, who said they want to come and demolish this place?
Okay, then we had an invitation from a developer through Power. Through Power College. Then when they brought the invitation, then we tried to talk to them. But they bend on bringing it, and then we go to press, then we talk to them. Later, then we reach out to IGY. Then IGY denied that he doesn't know anything about the issue then.
All right.
Then,
all right. Yeah, so, I mean, because we are absolutely pressed for time, we have to leave it here. We are absolutely on ground, and what we can assure our viewers around the world is that we're going to stay here and bring you up to speed with developments as they happen right here at the Computer Village.
Well, thank you very much, Kelly. POA, by the way, is Police Officers' Wives Association. That's the name of that complex in Computer Village, Lagos. As Kelly said, we're right there giving you live updates. But that's where we wrap up the show, Sunrise Daily, not just for today, but for the year. This is the final edition of Sunrise Daily for 2023. Goodness, what a year it has been. We've come to you every morning, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. without fail. We'd like to thank you so much for being a part of our year. I'm Kayode Kikiolu.
Yes, thank you so much for being a major high point of our year on Sunrise Daily. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Koka.
Indeed. And Maupe Ogunyusuf wishing you a very prosperous 2024.
Go in there and be the best that you can be. I'm Neo Taigwe. Bye-bye.